Thanks everybody for coming. My name is Jack Eklund. I'm the Public Director with University Place. And we also have members from our Park Commission here, and also Tony West with our Public Works Department to our Operations Manager. And then also we have our folks from ARC and Bruce Steves, right? For landscape architect and our architect for visioning. But also, we have some city council members here too, so make sure to say hi while we're doing our having our Q&A and looking at things afterwards. But anyway, thanks for coming. And what we're doing tonight is we're in the middle of a process of kind of doing a bit of a temperature check on, are we heading the right direction on the type of things we want to see envisioned at Cirque Park. A little bit of a history. About 20 years ago, we had done a visioning and a master plan for Cirque Park that had included like a fairly substantial community center, like a pool and various things. And then based on both economic reality, but also some of the input we're getting from residents, we are feeling that wasn't necessarily the input we're getting from folks, that's the direction they want to see, or maybe it is. So that's what this exercise has been. We've had now 2 different surveys. We've gone out, and hopefully, I don't know if you've seen it, hopefully you guys have contributed, but if not, you certainly can give comments tonight as well. But based on the survey, we do have some options and some preferred alternatives, and we want to present those tonight. But I think I've said enough. I'll turn it over to our experts and have Emily kind of get things going.
All right, can you hear me? I've been told I have to use a microphone, so thank you. I'm Emily Wheeler, principal at ARC Architects, and we've been working with your city staff on trying to reimagine Cirque Park into the future. It's a great park already. It has a lot of great features. I need a clicker. We have slides. Let's see. All right, here's what we're doing tonight. Quick agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about, high level, about what's going on at the park currently, some ideas that have come through from the pros plan, the surveys. We're going to look at the options, and then we're going to open it up for some comments. And our next steps after this is actually going to be some refinements based on your all's input, and then we will have another survey. We'll wrap it up. And that will become part of a master planning, and the city will be looking at what to do next to move forward. Do I need to speak louder? Okay, sorry about that. Briefly, I just want to let you know who my firm is. I work for ARC Architects. I'm a principal. I've been there over 20 years. We recently completed the Fircrest Community Center and pool, and a little before that was the East Side Community Center and pool. We enjoy working with Bruce Steves Landscape from Tacoma and collaborating on these projects so we work on public work projects. You can also see some other parks projects we've done. Covington Park was another project that we enjoy working on.
All right, so hi, I'm Mike Faulkner, a landscape architect with Bruce Steves and Associates, so a local landscape architecture firm. Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay.
I think for recording,
Yeah.
Oh, you don't need to hold on. You just have to push it and the screen.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That was like thinking about it.
for the record. How about now?
Try that.
Hold it a little closer to your mouth.
No.
Okay.
No.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
I can hear it now.
All right.
All right, so sorry about that. I'm Mike Faulkner. I'm a landscape architect with Bruce Steves and Associates. So local firm in Tacoma, has been operating in the area for the past 40 years. So the firm is always focused on public parks and trails and enhancing access to recreation. So we've certainly been fortunate over the years to work with our communities to bring dozens of public parks throughout the Puget Sound area. And we were actually involved or the firm was actually involved on the initial master plan for Cirque Park 20 years ago. So we're certainly excited to be collaborating with the city on this project and ARC Architects, and really look forward to hearing from all of you today. So the current park, features an array of recreational amenities. It has some, nice mature trees and forested areas, as well as views of Mount Rainier. So some of the recreational opportunities include walking trails, a variety of athletic fields, as well as the picnic and playground area, and then the skate park that is adjacent to the site we are now looking at, which features a flat gravel area that's well suited for development, as well as a low-lying forested area that we are hoping to preserve. Then, so based on the 2020 PROS plan, we have looked at a variety of both outdoor and indoor recreational features that appeared to be desired by the community, and these formed the basis for the initial community survey that went out. So some of those outdoor features include potential sports courts such as pickleball courts and basketball courts. We're also looking at opportunities for potential for a splash pad, as well as outdoor covered area, which could be picnic shelters or outdoor gathering space, as well as just general park amenities. And then with the indoor features, exploring potential for exercise classrooms and possibly an indoor playground. So those were the features that formed the basis for the survey.
All right, thank you, Michael. So I'm going to go over a little bit of the results of the surveys. This one was in December. Over 440 people responded. The first question was about attendance, who uses the park. So kind of just seeing who is responding to the survey. Over 50% of the people had been to the park in the last year, but also 43% had not. So maybe room for advertising because it's a great park. The second question the next three questions really had to do with the park amenities, like Michael said. So what was rated highly, looking just for park amenities, basic amenities like drinking fountains were the highest rated. Looking at next was natural areas and trails, and also more security measures. So. Top outdoor features beyond amenities, the request was for the highest respondent was for spray park or splash pad. Next one coming in close was pickleball courts, and then some sort of outdoor events space is what we were hearing. Basketball courts also rang in there pretty high. Indoor features, this was a question specifically about if there's an indoor space at this park, what would folks like to see there? Exercise classrooms was the highest, and then a community kitchen, and maybe an indoor play area. You can also see a gymnasium for volleyball, basketball was rated pretty high. And so these were the comments we received from the public in that flash survey. What the design team did was took that information and looked to create 3 different options for the park that gave emphasis on those preferred amenities in 3 different ways. So trying to come up with, again, a way to come back to the public with, well, what do you think about this? This is how we gather information, right? We need to see something in order to provide feedback. So we grouped them into 3 categories, or 3 options. One was mostly park. One was park with a little bit of indoor space. We called it environmental because the focus was more on maybe an environmental classroom that connected to the wetlands and the trails. And the third was more focused on a community center potential. We created these sketches and reviewed these with the city's team, their project team, looking at, we call these bubble diagrams, what fits on the site, what should be next to what makes sense. Again, we're looking at the gravel area that's out there right now and how to kind of complete the park. From that, Michael created some nicer looking drawings that, nice graphics. I know you can't see them very well, but hopefully if those who took the survey So the first one is mostly outdoor spaces. The second one brought in one classroom. And the third one was more of a community center. And that's what the Parks Advisory Commission reviewed these, and then we took it out for survey. And that was in March. So in March, this was the community feedback on those 3 ideas. And from that, you can see just in the word bubble, the splash pad was coming in pretty high, as well as covered areas and the parks. When we compared the detailed questions, the splash pad was more highly rated than the covered picnic area, the open courts a little bit higher than the covered courts, and then actually covered courts, though, outside was higher than indoor. So that gave us some things to think about. What does the public want to see here? What would they support? When looking at the plans, these were the ratings. So the expanded park was definitely rating higher, though maybe people were splitting their votes on the other one. So, and 6% of the people didn't like any of these ideas. So we took this information, and what we felt we were hearing was to focus more on the expanded park. There was also a comment section, so we read through all the comments that people had and tried to digest sort of a general theme of what people were looking for at the park. And it led us to this, sorry, before I get there, I'm going to zoom in on each of these a little bit more, because we realized those drawings were very small for this format. So this was the option 1. You can see the event lawn. Actually, I'm going to pause. Who here took the survey? Hey, awesome, thank you. All right, who here has been to the park in the last month? Awesome. All right, we got some good folks here. Appreciate that. So looking at the sketches, this was the first one. This was the most highly ranked. Really focusing on the outdoor amenities, the courts, splash pad and events lawn, and some additional parking as well to support those areas, and a restroom building to support these activities on the north end, the skate park, and folks on the north end. There's a restroom building on the other end, but it's kind of far away. This one was rated 3rd. And similar idea, but a little smaller version and more focused on the potential for a classroom and trails. And then the 3rd version was the community center with larger indoor courts and classrooms. So we took the feedback and came up with this, we're calling it the preferred option. It might be better called the current design for discussion, might be a better way to describe it. So this is what we'd really like some feedback on. You can give us feedback on anything, actually, but this is where we've progressed to. This is what we think would be a nice way to fill out the park based on community input. I have 3 screens, I don't know where to point, so I'll just talk. So as you can see, we're building on coming up from the fields. We're proposing we move the splash pad to the south side. Hey, thank you. Yeah, so the splash pad kind of on the south side of the courts. We're envisioning there could be some picnic tables, and the splash pad potentially isn't like a big water. There could be a few big water features, but maybe it's more a runnel on the ground. And after I stop talking, you can come give us your thoughts on some of the features and tell us sort of your preference of what you think would be appropriate. Then we're showing 3 basketball courts and 9 pickleball courts kind of overlaid. So input on pickleball versus basketball and the potential for overlaying those on the same. Might be a usage question. And then there's a restroom building, which would also include the pump room for the splash pad, the events lawn, and then some parking.
Covered area.
Yeah, and potential for covering, we were looking at covering 2 of the courts, plus that roof would like expand over the bathrooms and then have some other covered, might cover some picnic tables. Trying to give a variety of space. Some people prefer the sun. Obviously, if we could cover a couple of those courts, that would extend their usage throughout the year. You can run summer camps better if you have a covered court. The kids can be in there in the summer. All sorts of additional activities can happen if we could afford to cover the courts. So something to think about. I know I talk fast. Any questions? All right, we have just a few more slides. So we're looking at phasing. This is just an idea. Nothing set in stone here. Love your input. Generally, when you're building, you want to build from the inside out, so you don't get your trucks stuck in there. So that was sort of the thought here was, well, maybe we build the events lawn, and then the courts, and then the restrooms, and the splash pad, and then the parking lot. These could go in any order. I probably didn't even follow it there. But the idea is to potentially, based on funding and grants and how this gets funded, the city is looking at breaking this up into smaller pieces. So that is for discussion. It'd be great to build it all at once, but that may not be feasible. So we want to walk away from this study with some potential ways of phasing it. So as the city finds the funding, they can decide how much they can afford to build and when. All right, so after the meeting, there's all sorts of ways you can do water features. This is more Michael's thing, but he'll answer questions later. Whether, it's a big, tall water features, it can be smaller educational, it can just provide that cooling place, 6-7 months out of the year for kids to take your kids, let them play in the water. Around here, you can do it all year long. Just some ideas on if we covered the courts, what do you feel would be appropriate at that park? Whether it's more of a tensile structure, more of a metal, or just generally how the feel about it.
Would there be lights on those courts?
Either way, there would be, I think either way there would be lights. Depending on the structure, there might need to be more lights. And that's why some of the options are, we would want to bring daylighting in and try and minimize the use of artificial lights. But definitely, we'd want some lights. And we're not butting up to any neighbors right there, and I think the fields are already lighted, But good question, that would also need to be in the budget. So I'll let you guys come up and talk about that. So, big picture, there have been 2 surveys so far. We are requesting input tonight, see what you guys think. We will take that input and make some revisions, and then we're going to take this to the cost estimator, and we're going to come up with a budget and some phasing ideas, and then we're going to come back out to the public for a 3rd survey, and it's going to be a more in-depth survey, not just the flash survey. We have another consultant on board who's going to help do that. It'll ask broader questions as well as kind of drill into what do you think about paying for this?
Yeah, a question I would like to have put into this questionnaire.
Yes.
Homeowners versus renters.
Okay.
Are you a homeowner or a renter?
I think that might be in there. Okay. Okay. That's a great question. Yep. It's good to know who we're getting information from, because we want to get input from a broad range of folks. From there, from that survey, we'll see if there's any refinements we need to make, and then we will look to wrapping this up, and so the city can start their funding plans from there.
Just a couple things to. So then before we open it up to all questions, I do want to address just a few things just to clarify. So this is still, it's a refinement of our visioning, right? There is not, I want to kind of both temper expectations and also worries, I guess, depending on which side of the coin you're on. But right now, there is not a plan to say, go out to the voters for a tax levy increase or anything like that. What we're trying to do with this exercise, identify kind of the scope of what realistically can go out there, what the community wants, and then identify if there are areas, if funding opportunities arise, like a grant opportunity or something that we can do incrementally, like Emily mentioned, as a phase tech approach, because we wouldn't want to. It's one of the biggest hurdles to the whole aspect is operational costs, right? And that's one of the biggest downsides too. I know there's a number of folks that did still want in our surveys. We did have a percentage of folks that still would like to have seen the community center. The challenge with the community center really is the operating costs, and that would mean more just staffing costs to be able to run a community center. It doesn't mean that some of these options, and we can kind of mention a little bit that things could be tweaked in a way that maybe in the future a community center could still be built in some of the footprint area, but kind of more, the options we're showing here are more of what we're seeing as the top priorities based on the community feedback we've got so far. The other thing we'd be looking at is there are plus and minuses. So like the water feature, for example, if we do the fancy stuff with a bunch of doodads and whirly gigs and all kinds of stuff, that does, some of those things have a higher maintenance impact than others. And so that's another thing that potentially, if you do the full meal deal and we have a lot of things, which if we know that's what the community goal is, we can try to plan for those things, but those are the trade-offs. So if, and there are still maintenance requirements with a splash pad, but the less of the interactive stuff, the more of just the water spraying, probably the lower intensity of the maintenance. And so it's just a cost balance as well. The other thing, if depending on the roof option, if you want to go back to the preferred alternate thing, one of the options with the roof that could be considered is that so if this is the roof outline, depending on the nature of the roof we do, you could theoretically have a roof that then could be, at least elements of it that could maybe be incorporated as a future community center kind of thing. So that could be a footprint, but we would envision that being a very, very long-term thing, because we wouldn't want to, ideally we're trying to identify things that can be done here that don't have, we wouldn't want to have something redone, so to speak. But if the sport courts and so forth lay a foundation for a future building, that may be opportunities that could be incorporated at reasonable cost kind of stuff. But that's then the other things on the preferred options, we looked at just based on the feedback, like Emily said, because there was, one of the things just to note here, in some of the options we had potential tennis court versus pickleball court and basketball versus pickleball, and we didn't get a lot of support feedback or input for tennis courts. And so that's why right now it shows that they would be optional of either basketball or pickleball. And what we like about having that flexible space is then, depending on demand, then park staff could set it up as either pickleball courts or basketball courts as, community tastes change. But that's right now what we're proposing, but if there are more comments for other type of flexibility, that's something we're looking for too. But other than that, that's kind of the gist of things. But I think we'd like to open it up to any questions you guys might have. Yeah. Here, I'll pass this so everyone can hear.
Hi, thank you. Steve Thorndale, citizen here for, 30 years in the University Place. Also, about 4 years ago, I was chair of the Park Advisory Commission, and we were just about going to do all this stuff 4 years ago. COVID hit. The master plan. So, this is exciting that this is going out again. I'm anxious to see that flat area filled up with good stuff like sports courts and things like that. But I want to say, as far as the sports courts, and I'm a pickleball fanatic. I didn't become a pickleball fanatic until after I was on the park commission, so it was not one that I went there. But I always say the enlightened pickleball communities build dedicated pickleball courts And in some of your diagrams, you have like 4 dedicated pickleball courts with little fences around them. And that's the way Lacey does it, the way Olympia does it, the way Yakima does it, Bend, Oregon. I mean, and you really have these great communities of people, both young and old, who are playing pickleball all the time. I mean, if you went up, like even in North Tacoma, like Vasalt Park, I mean, there's just a dedicated group that plays there every day for hours and hours. But so I mean, you could really make a wonderful pickleball facility. I personally liked the one that had 3 elements: basketball court, 4 dedicated pickleball courts, a tennis court that you could make into 2 more pickleball courts. Put a roof on it, be great, but you know, getting something going is really going to help the community. You're going to get a whole lot of people out there playing these sports courts like that. I want to ask one more question of Jack, because I know from a funding point of view, the state has the RCO, Recreation Conservation Office funding, and this is about the time when you're due again for the next 2-year cycle, as I recall, like May 1 or something like that. And last time we spoke, I thought you said we'd probably put in a nice request for sports courts at this one this year. What are your thoughts for getting something in this year by May 1?
Yeah, we're still evaluating which, if we are going to be able to do any applications this year. We have a couple already still under consideration from the last go-around, and so it's a bit of a, we're working with our RCO kind of reps to see what's the best way to move forward on that. So that decision hasn't been made. It sounds like, and Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like this go-around is less of an emphasis on facilities. It was, anyway, they kind of alternate what their emphasis is. So more to come on that. We haven't made a full decision. Well, either we will continue to push for the ones that are, right now we have 2 projects that are top of the list of the alternates, and so we're hoping those get funded. And so then it's a bit of a capacity of us taking on be able to administer multiple things at once. But so more to be seen. Yep. All right. Yeah. Here you go.
Yeah, I'm a pickleball fanatic too, kind of, sort of. Maybe not as much as him, but I was just wondering, has University Place thought of maybe partnering with another park organization, Metro Parks, or maybe with the YMCA to help afford this kind of complex?
We have done some, and the question, if you didn't hear that, have the city looked at doing any partnerships with, say, the YMCA or Metro Parks. We have done some, reached out to them to have discussions. Right now, neither the YMCA or Metro Parks are, their models aren't such that they are interested in going out into outside of their facilities, other than for YMCA right now, they're focused on, if they go outside of their facilities, more like communities of communities in need, like financial, like low-income communities and so forth, which we wouldn't qualify for. And then Metro Parks, I think, just because they have such a big system themselves, they certainly welcome all use of our residents to their facilities, and they don't charge our residents anymore, but they also weren't interested. But we also thought that'd be a great idea, so we reached out to them. But right now, that doesn't look hopeful.
Would there be charge then if this was a community area? Would there be charges to entry or admission or anything like that?
Right now, we wouldn't anticipate that's not the direction we would head. The only way we'd ever look at something like that is if it would almost be like it would have to be not on like a revenue kind of thing, but be more of a demand type of thing. That if the demand was so high that people wanted to be able to use it, there may be something. But I find that incredibly unlikely, and most likely it would just be, it'd be
rental fees if there's like a pickleball tournament.
That type of thing, yeah.
Fees for, certain weekends. There could be summer camps where they, pay a nominal fee to have kids there.
But most,
Different tennis classes.
yep.
But
And most of the funding opportunities we would have a stipulation that they are for general public and wouldn't be like for commercial use type of thing. So it certainly wouldn't be, we don't anticipate that. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Brian Stamp, University Place resident for 25 plus years. I just want to, I know there's a lot of pickleball people here too, but I want to throw out my 2 cents for the tennis players too, so make sure that we get some representation. Our whole family are tennis players, and we do enjoy that sport a lot. So I just want to make sure that we are, also included when it comes to making some decisions here. Primarily because, just like the gentleman in front of us said, that it can also be used as a pickleball court. So I think it serves a dual purpose. So I just want to make sure that we that there is some good votes for tennis as well. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any other? Yep, here you go.
Hey, James Sherry, UP resident, and I don't play pickleball or tennis or anything. But I actually had kind of 2 questions. One was, I remember when taking the survey, we got the pictures of the 3 options, and I remember there was an issue where the image is for 2 of the options were a mismatch with the descriptions of the options. And I even saw in the comments afterwards, they were I had put that down that I was a bit confused, and a couple other folks had put that down. So I was wondering if there was an attempt made to disambiguate what had actually been the choice in that case. I know that there's the other things to vote on, splash pad versus specific things that give you some hints, but I just wasn't sure if there was anything like these choices were just kind of evaluated with that overarching choice in mind. And I guess the second thing I'm curious about is why every single plan calls for additional parking. I walk down to Cirque Park all the time, and I have never seen that parking lot more than a third full ever, even on weekends, busy weekends, Memorial Day weekend or something like that. And it just seems like, I understand if we were to have a gymnasium or something there, we'd have to have some closer handicap parking and that kind of thing. And if we needed to have 5 stalls for that nearby, that's one thing, but it just seems bananas to me that we're going to take an already underutilized parking lot and tack more on.
Yeah, thanks, James. So on the your first question, really what drove the alternative selection of the amenities was it was really strongly weighted on the individual responses and not so much of what preferred alternative you like. And I think because we saw some of that a little bit, like many of these elements in our current one have some of those, the environmental features that were, if you just went by that, were the least desired alternative. However, based on the comments, there were a lot of comments. People wanted to see covered play areas. They wanted to see the picnic areas. They wanted to see the splash pad. They wanted to see the the restrooms and so forth. So this was driven mostly by both the hard comments of, would you like to see this, 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 or this? Not as much the which of the alternatives, and also the written responses from folks. As regard to parking, it's really based on what we anticipate. If we did the expanded use, we would anticipate just an additional need for parking. And we do have times on busy weekends where we do have had to open up. Like right now, this area is used as overflow parking at times when we've had busier events. In addition, one thing that's not that's evaluated, but we're kind of not part of this conversation a little bit, but it's related in the same park, is right now we're in the exciting position we're going to be expanding the playground to fill up almost a large area, which off scene here. But it'll be the largest. It's going to be an inclusive playground, it's called. So it's a playground that's for all ages and abilities. It's going to be the largest inclusive playground in the region. And we anticipate that's going to increase some of the parking demand too. So we're in, that's where we're seeing both with what improvements we see here, and then also some of the exciting things we have already in works that we would start to see a higher demand for parking. And yeah, and,
It's cost money and B, it's taking care of park space.
yep. So for those in here, so the question was, this really is a master plan exercise, and really as each element's implemented, right, the need for the parking would be evaluated, and really kind of looking at the phasing. That's where we think phasing makes a lot of sense, and certainly our first phase wouldn't be parking, right? It would probably be more as we validate that that's the demand that's there, that then we'd be going that way. Yep.
Thank you, Jack. I wanted to make one more comment on the splash pad. This was a very highly designated one 4 years ago, and the big pro survey we had. I was surprised, though, that I thought, okay, you add a splash pad by the playground, so you kind of consolidate playground type things, kind of like they do at Chitlow Park, rather than have a splash pad way over here and the playground way over here. So I don't know if you guys have considered that, the functions like that, but that seems to be a better fit to me.
Yeah, and the challenge with that is space, and with the expanded playground, there's no more room for a splash pad at that location. That's a possibility, right? One of the things that is popular at the volleyball court is the proximity to the covered picnic shelter. But that is something that could be done. Right now, for all the options, people seem to like the splash pad in the orientation where it was at. So, but those are considerations that could be looked at, certainly. Oh yeah, sorry.
Similar comment. My comment was sort of similar to his, of that. I know when I'm with my little kids and we're trying to get to the park and then we're trying to get to the splash pad, being closer to parking is more ideal for them. And so that was my only comment when I saw how far away the splash pad would be actually from the parking. We'd actually probably mostly walk to the park because we are within walking distance. But on the days that we did park, I feel like that would be like a thing, like especially if your kid like needs a diaper change or just something. I don't know. That's the only thing I thought about. But the parking's over on the other side, eh? Oh, sorry. I thought that thing up there said parking.
Yeah, this is parking, but then there's parking.
Oh, there's a. Oh, okay. Okay.
Lots of parking. Yes, that was the comment.
Yeah, so we'd still have, so here, this shows the general site area. So like this is right now, this is the area where the new there's an existing playground, the new playground will fill up this kind of whole area. This is the volleyball courts that Steve was talking about. And this right here is our picnic shelter. The volleyball courts and the picnic shelter are planned to remain in those locations. But then this is the existing parking. So then the idea is the splash pad would be proposed here, the sport courts here, and then this would be additional parking closer to both of those facilities and amenities. Inclusive playgrounds over here, kind of by the, right next to the main entryway in. Yeah, yeah. But it'll fill up the entire area from basically the restrooms out to the parking lot. All right, any more questions? Yeah, sure.
Dennis Flynn, resident of UP for 43 years. First thing I'm going to say is no new taxes. In the time I've lived here, I've seen my property taxes skyrocket, and we are currently the highest levy rate in Pierce County. And we were last year also. And I'm transportation benefit district is on the table for being increased. I've heard that mumbled. And it was just reduced so that we could pass our police levy. And seeing that come back is not going to be a friendly thing for the public. But I asked about vandalism in the parks. I had requested information on that in the past, and nobody was able to give me any kind of an answer because there were so many people involved in different areas of work. The people in the green work versus the maintenance and stuff like that. So they did not come up with any solid answer. But I think that's one of the things. Copper is over $4 a pound now. And so we're looking at a problem of vandalism and theft for that. So we should be very careful about what we put out in the open that we can't protect. Yeah. I guess that's all I need to say, but no new taxes is the bottom line.
All right, thanks, Dennis. A couple things, just a clarification on the, not that it is part of this consideration, but and not that it is necessarily going back to but on the TBD, it was actually, the issue with the TBD, it was temporarily reduced due to we had put a hold on the TBD spending when there was the initiative that it was targeted toward the RTA tax, and then that was going to have a potential repercussion on any kind of transportation benefit districts. And so the city had not spent the TBD for several years because they weren't sure if that was going to go forward or not. It was a unconstitutional thing passed, but then that was the main impetus to basically reducing the TBD because we had the extra funds for it. It was at the time identified that then it would be looked at again, but there's no guarantee either way. But it didn't have anything to do with the police levy. Just to clarify that in case to clarify for those folks. On the vandalism, I'm not sure who you're talking to, but if you give me or Tony a call, we'll make sure we can answer any questions because there's not going to be any. It'll be easy to get whatever you need, but. Wire theft is a challenge, and that's where, if you noticed at the park, we had the lights off for quite a while in the fields because it was getting to a point where, people were stealing the wires, and we would, put the boxes in concrete. They would dig up the boxes. We would do this, and they would start to just explore in the field, just trying to find it. And so we did not rewire those lights until we did this recent paving, the trail that's paved around. And so now all of our lighting is under the asphalt. So now it's all protected and they can't get into it. But that's you're 100% right, that's a challenge, and it's always a consideration in everything we do. But anytime you have any questions on the vandalism or anything in the park, make sure either myself or Tony.
Well, it was an open session.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway,
just to me, that's an issue.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, and then we will have some more here.
Do I have to use this?
Nope, it's all good. Yeah, just use it just so.
Okay. I'm Bae Stemp. I'm here representing PAC, the Park Advisory Committee, but also as a 25-year-plus resident of UP who has raised 4 active boys in the community. And I wanted to speak to Dennis's point because I feel like University Place, well, I know University Place is an amazing place to live and raise family and enjoy the outdoors. But I do feel that you're taxing families out of their lifestyles, quite frankly. Vacations, discretionary income. We have multiple levies that we're all supporting for strong schools, for our police, for our fire. And my concern is this is a very fun wish list. But who's paying for it? And as Dennis brought up, those who are filling out the survey, are they renters? Are they homeowners? Over 45% of your survey respondents had not visited this park in over a year. So that's astounding to me. And yet they're having input dictating this master plan and something that the entire community will have to afford, whether they care to use it or not. So I am all for parks and developing green space, but I know right now we have a wonderful park in place that gets a lot of use, and this seems on some fronts excessive given that there's not designated funding for it at this time. So I would almost like, I'd like to see a couple things. Thank you for the time. One is when you're filling out the survey, if you have to pay for this, either with a parking permit, pay to use, or an increase in your taxes or an additional levy, would you still want to support this project? Because I think that's a valid question. Was there anything like that on the survey? Okay, great. And the other thing is kind of probably working backwards from maybe what you do professionally, but let's pretend this is a 500,000 or $1 million or 1.5 budget. This is what different things cost. What are your priorities? And like when you're looking at water features or types of roofing for the sports court, all of which are quite frankly quite a luxury. But okay, this is the price point on choice B, this is the price point on point F. If we go with F and we still want to stay within this budget, what would we have to sacrifice from our splash pad accessories and that sort of thing? So that's one comment. So it's something to think about when you're addressing the community. Is the reality is all this comes with a price tag, and how badly do we want it? And perhaps, I don't know, I would hope maybe more people would feel inclined to share their opinion on what they'd like to see, knowing that they're going to be having to pay for it with their levy or tax dollars. So thank you. And then my last plug is I have to plug not just a short-term personal interest plug, but a long-term vision for the community where we hope to stay if we're not taxed out of it, is I'd like to see multi-use, high-function sports courts. And I would like to see a tennis court, a basketball, and pickleball courts. And I think it's asinine not to have all three, particularly because the basketball court and the tennis courts can be double or triple lined. Someone referenced the wonderful courts at Basalt and how frequently they're used for pickleball. They are often used still as tennis courts, and that's how they originated. And it's wonderful when the same slab of asphalt, if you will, can serve multiple functions in different sports. So I am going to give a plug for seeing a tennis court. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, thanks. Let me respond and then I'll get to you. Yeah, thank you. And then, yeah, great points. One thing just to, and this is just more of a little bit of a tax soapbox, but I just want to make sure that, one, this is not an exercise we're proposing to go out for a levy, or as I mentioned earlier, and there's a bit of a chicken and the egg thing. We have to identify what is the goal of what we want before we can go out and then find something like a grant or some more thing. Right now, that would be the goal, is, especially from a phasing option, is to identify things in the short term that could be handled with existing maintenance, basically maintenance and staffing needs, and constructed using support, whether it's from the legislature or the RCO or some other kind of thing. So that would be the short-term goal. If the community in the survey wanted higher intensity type of stuff, which right now it was like the community center itself, and that's part of, like I said, the temperature check of where we're at. Is that still what people want to go? And although there were people that wanted that, it was a significantly higher percentage of people that wanted like the sport courts or the lower maintenance type of things and capital costs. On just taxes in general, I do want to just put a plug in. Although I think you're probably correct from a resident standpoint. The general levy tax is potentially high. From what you get from the city or the city control, it's one of the lowest in the area. So it's not the city. If we make statements that the city is taxing you out of your thing, that's not true, right? And Dennis knows too. But we have, at least the community has historically supported a strong school system, which is important, but it's also expensive. Strong fire system, which is important, but all those things, we've historically supported those and we've enjoyed the benefits of it, but it's costly, but it's also not the city. The city tax rate is very, very small compared. But not us, but you're talking to the wrong group in that one. Yeah, but we're not the ones issuing that. But I think that addresses for the most part. Oh, the only other thing on the tennis court, yeah, I'll get. Just another thing on tennis courts. Part of where we didn't show it here, although we certainly can look at that again, is we are still relatively well served by tennis courts with the Curtis facilities. And so there are about 6 courts, and even some that are not even the lesser used ones down below, that are in existence at Curtis that they leave open to the public year round. And so that's part of the decision, at least.
Just to that point,
Yeah.
there are 4 top courts that have been finished and are playable. There are 3 lower courts that are so cracked and full of weeds that when the Curtis High School tennis players play on it, they have to repeat points when the balls hit
Yeah.
the crack.
They're older ones for sure.
Those courts, my understanding, are on school district property.
100% on. Yep.
Okay, so the general public, my understanding from reading the tennis court rules, but I could be incorrect, is that you're not to be on those courts, the general public, during school hours.
That is so when they're going to be used by the school, they're not supposed to be used.
Right.
Although they haven't limited that at this point.
Okay, and during boys tennis season, which is August
Higher demand.
through October, and girls tennis season, the courts are used by our wonderful little Vikings,
Yeah.
sometimes until 7 in the evening. So I think it's a little misleading to talk about the number of public courts that are accessible, because there aren't actually public courts in University Place, are there, that are open to the public that aren't on school grounds? Where can you go to play?
Only public would be on the school grounds.
Right.
There's a basketball court across from Cirque.
Yep, that's right. It's like a half court size. That's on a public property. That's on a park area. But anyway.
So, but the Curtis courts are misleading
Yeah.
because they aren't truly open.
But I think you could look at Furcrest. Furcrest has, 2 locations of tennis courts, right? Which I don't think anybody's checking anybody's, driver's license when you go over there from University Place to use Furcrest tennis courts, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like that's an option also.
Yeah, and certainly I'm not trying to, I was just saying why wasn't there, if the input is we want tennis courts, we can look at that. But as we're seeing, there's a little bit of a
There's
give and
also
take. There's a higher demand for one right now.
also playgrounds and water splash parks, right in Titlow Beach and other places. So are we saying that we have neighborhood facilities, are we saying then that we don't have certain needs because neighboring towns have amenities? That seems to be what you're saying.
I'd say not just related to tennis courts. I also would say related to some of the water features, right? You got
Could be.
Reston, you've got different, things there. Pickleball, not so much.
I think this is a master plan, so what we're right now planning is courts. We can just think of these as courts
And typically they're,
discussion where funding is available. Parks or
yeah, and
city
they're
will have to
generally
come back to the
footprint,
public and some more arm wrestling.
and footprint sizes, they're similar, right?
Which is nice.
Yeah, it's similar. But here we go.
It's like the option 1 that you had earlier that had the dedicated pickleball courts. They need to be dedicated. Okay, if you go with a multi-use court like that, where are the nets coming from?
Oh,
Right.
The plan on that, I guess we could do 2. couldn't we? The plan on the, where we show the multi-use, it wouldn't be that it would be, how they would be used would be set by the Parks and Rec, our parks staff. So it'd be set up as let's say if the demand right now is pickleball, they may be all set up as pickleball courts, right? Then if the public demand becomes, well, we need to see more basketball courts, maybe it shifts so you have 3 pickleball, you have 2 basketball. Or, you know, if we do have a tennis route, then maybe it gets set up that you have a tennis court and a pickleball and a basketball. So it wouldn't be up to, say, the users to be able to switch it out. It would be set up ahead of time based on public demand. But so it essentially would be dedicated once those nets are set up to those uses, if that makes sense.
So dedicated, you mean the nets would be in place, or they portable nets?
They'd be in place. They'd be the kinds you would install and post. So because we have to make sure that they're vandalism proof and all that sort of thing too.
So kind of appease the tennis. I play both. So it kind of appease the tennis side. The first option you had 4 dedicated pickleball courts, which I think are great. I think they need to be dedicated. Then you had 1 or 2 tennis courts that were lined also for pickleball that you could, expand on if you had a tournament or something like that. That would be the ideal for both tennis and pickleball if you're going to go that route. I don't know about the basketball. I think you're going to be, dealing with youth trying to play, and I don't know how that would work.
And I think the idea with the basketball courts are, whether demand is that right now it's not necessarily a big demand, but to be flexible to, like I said, if, community taste or whatever change and there's a demand for that, then you could always convert it to that. So the stripes would be in place, but it wouldn't be like someone's going to say, I want to sign up for basketball today if the basketball court's not set up, right? That's not an option. So the idea it would essentially be dedicated facilities for whatever they're being used at the time, but we would have a flexibility to shift it around based on the demand, if that makes sense. Yeah, you could do that too. That was the concept here. But it wouldn't be, because I know that you've seen I've seen other areas where they have like portable nets or things where people like set it up themselves, and that wouldn't be what we'd be.
Exactly. So Fircrest did that. So they have 3 tennis courts down at Fircrest Park, and then they have 6 lined pickleball courts, which you don't see being used that often because who has the nets? You have to either rent them or buy a net. So, and essentially you don't even have tennis courts that are being used. I grew up playing tennis. I played tennis all my life. My dad built the first indoor club in the area, which was Fircrest Tennis Club and Northwest Racket Club. So I know about tennis, but tennis has taken a dive over the years. Curtis has, the 4 dedicated courts there. I played there many times while school was going. You're off the campus. You're not right in the middle of the campus. You're behind it. So I don't think that's an issue that you might think. They've never kicked us off when I was playing, and I played years there. So there's tennis courts in the area that can be used. There's no pickleball courts in the area.
Yeah, and that seems to be the biggest demand.
It's a state sport. It's where pickleball grew up, was in Washington.
Yeah.
So we really need to, and we have a room full of people here, I think, that are pickleball players.
And part.
Yeah. I also believe that if you build like dedicated courts, you could have tournaments there, which is going to bring people from the outside. That's going to support your businesses, the town center. I just think it's an opportunity for the city.
I do think, and that's part of also where this scenario came from, because one of the comments we had on this scenario, on the previous, the one that had each one is dedicated, is we need more pickleball. That's not enough pickleball, right? And so then the way to get more pickleball is basically to make, let's, if the demand is for 9 pickleball courts, we have 9 pickleball courts, right? And then if the demand shifts to a basketball court and 6 pickleball courts, we can do that, right? But that's the way, and that's the concept, is it would be dedicated for what the use is, but then it could always be converted to something else. But park staff would identify that kind of thing. Yep.
So the nets don't stay in place there?
No, the concept would be the nets would be in place, just like a tennis court or whatever, but it would be set up for. Yeah.
Getting a lot of complaints.
We haven't had it like Tony for our, let's see, I better be talking right. Like for example, our volleyball net, we don't get a lot of vandalism on that, do we? So right now we haven't seen a problem with it. You can't do like the portable ones are problematic because those are less durable. They're more prone to walking off or something. So you have to have the kind of more industrial type of kind of thing. It's the type that you would have a post that gets attached into the ground, but then you pull the post out and there's like a little cap that goes on there that's flush with the ground. So then when it's not in use, it's not a tripping hazard kind of thing. But it would be locked and secured. So, all right. Oh, yep.
What I'd like to do after this comment is to have folks come up and talk to, ask questions, especially those who maybe don't enjoy talking in front of people. Bring your comments to us, your questions, as well as have some thoughts. We would like you to vote on the water feature. You can vote on the one you think is cheapest, the one you think is more fun, whatever you want. And then the shade structure is really about aesthetics. Yes, cost is an issue, but what we're trying to get is a feel for aesthetics. We have post-it notes. Leave a comment here. You can tell us you don't like any of those options. Whatever you'd like, we'll record it, and it is very important for us.
I guess I'm brainstorming here. Have you considered private, versus public as far as pickleball courts? I know my mom lives in Lacey, and a group has built a private pickleball, essentially club, that's gangbusters. Have you guys reached out to anybody to see if there's any interest in, doing something private where, the public isn't supporting this? They've got, I think, 8 courts. I'm saying just not specifically for this. I'm saying if somebody wanted to, if you had some other area in University Place that you're reaching out to saying, hey, obviously pickleball is clearly a popular sport right now. Is there, because again, if you're talking about hosting tournaments, you're going to need 12 courts. You're going to need 16 courts. I think that seems a little outlandish to try to make this a tournament hosting, park that we're trying to get involved with. So, potentially, reaching out and see if there's any if there's any areas in University Place that private people want to come and, try to do that themselves. So, just a thought.
Yeah, sure. At least just from what the exercise here is we're really driven by what do people want to see at Cirque and what public facilities. It's a little limited of what kind of private kind of partnerships or activity. That's a lot of just driven kind of by the market. So we haven't reached out to a lot of folks from that standpoint, but good idea.
One quick response on the private. There was a group that was trying to get the old Albertsons to make an indoor pickleball court, but they could not afford that building. So they've located downtown Tacoma. It's called The Drop. Has 6 indoor pickleball courts, and they do lots of small tournaments, even with 6. But I want to ask Jack one final question on funding. Isn't there the park impact fees? Wouldn't they contribute a substantial amount of matching funds for state grants and things like that? And you've got a big war chest of funds there, don't you, for park impact fee?
I don't know about a war chest, but we do have a park impact fee. The challenge with park impact fees is that it can't be used to primarily fund for something. So typically, it can be used for about half the money. So as new developments come, what a park impact fee is when primarily housing developments. So like when some of the apartment complexes or the condos or whatever gets built around the city, there's a certain amount of funds they have to pay per unit that goes into the park impact fee to pay for demand on recreation facilities. And so it does, the nice thing about that, like Steve mentioned, that it gives us the leverage, and also we already have the public match funding in place. So many grants that are out there require some public participation, and with the park impact fee, that does give us that. And so we are relatively well positioned from that standpoint to get help from funding. For the capital, yeah. So the the concern on any of these for potential, operational costs or tax increases really would get into not so much the capital, because I think with any of these alternatives, the number one option would be to seek outside help, grants and so forth. It would be if we added enough elements that all of a sudden, operationally, we can't maintain it or operate it without additional staffing. And that's where you could get into some additional costs. But I wouldn't, at this point, I wouldn't envision the capital part. At least City Council has not indicated that that's a direction they want to head in the short term, is to look at. We're not exploring construction bonds or anything like that for that sort of thing. But anyway, so now with that, I think let's. Sure. Yeah. Yep.
My name is Mark Libert, and I would say let's not disparage the renters. Right? They're paying rent. The people who own their buildings are paying taxes, right? I'm a homeowner, but I think we should, invite that. My comment is, let's get our master plan put together. Let's figure out where the pickleball courts are going to go and just build those first and see what happens after that, right? Maybe it takes 20 years to put in other amenities, but let's start there.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that really is what we're talking about with the phasing and everything. So it really will be what we can do and what's the community priorities. That's great.
My name is Sean. I'm not seasoned. I'm less than 4 years here. My biggest concern is I am recently new to University Place. However, I live right next to the park, literally. And what I see is, my question as far as progress is great. What you guys are planning is great. However, it seems like we got to work with what we have right now and get that to work well before we grow even more. We have maintenance people that work not on weekends. We have garbage that is left over from Saturday parties to Sunday, and then from Sunday to Monday, and then you have a massive amount of garbage and such. Will this encumber more maintenance, and will there be someone around on the weekends? And when there is major issues that are happening in the park, where or how can we reach out to the city to take care of it? We call 911, they're too busy, it's not worth their time, it's a waste of time, but that's what we're told to do. So my concern is, let's work with what we have first and get it good before we go on. So I'm sorry to be a killjoy, but.
And just real quick on that is, and that has been an issue of concern and been a priority for City Council. And they made this last cycle, they made a big emphasis on how to shore up our park maintenance needs, because that's one of their priorities in the 23-24 council goals. And so we do have, I think we have a good plan in place. We were able to get some additional staffing to do it without raising taxes, and so that has been good. And so but you're 100% correct. It's a big demand out there. The garbage is a constant battle, and Tony knows that in scheduling all the folks. Now, Tony, for weekends, we typically, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, maybe just real quick.
Yep. On the staffing side of it, you're correct. In the past, we haven't had weekend staff. However, this summer, starting probably next month in May, we will have park maintenance staff 7 days a week in the parks for the entire summer. So our goal is the garbage issues in the past, we have experienced that, so hopefully that will be greatly reduced this summer. So.
And then we do have, if there is a weekend park issue, I assume our on-call there's an on-call phone number that certainly 911 won't address those, but the city has one on our website. It's a after-hours on-call number that Tony probably even knows it off the top of his head, but anyway, that would be the number, and then there's somebody. It depends on the severity of it, whether they can address it right away or not. But at least it'll go straight to park staff for most of those concerns. And if we have someone staff for the weekend, then at least we could address the majority of them. All right, so with that, there's Post-it notes here. If you could give any comments you have on any of the various options or anything that comes to mind, we really are anxious to hear what you have to say, and we'll certainly then take what we hear tonight and kind of refine that to tweak our options and look at phasing plans, and then we should have, as Emily mentioned, we're targeting the next survey is in May-June timeframe, and that's going to be a little bit more in depth than the past surveys. And so, like some of James' concern, I think it should be a little clearer and more directed. So we anticipate that shouldn't be as much of an issue. And then we'll get. I might put out. If you guys are interested, how are we doing the surveys? Is it going to be a link on the website? Do we know how that'll be?
On the website and an email blast to those who are signed up.
Okay, and so if you guys are not signed up for the email and stuff, I'll put out a piece of paper here if you could put your name and contact information, and we can make sure that you can get notified of that survey as well.
Or you can send an email to Tony or Jack.
Yes, right there too. So, all right, thank you, and then come on up, and then feel free to ask any of us questions up here too. Thank you.